Hi, I'm Walter. I'm the Dutch mentor. Welcome back to the Smart Performance Podcast, where S stands for self-care, M for mindful growth, A for adaptive problem solving, R for rhythmic operation, T, of course, for building that very important thriving community, and P for performance. Today's topic is going to be about self-efficacy as a leader. And you say, what? Another fancy consultative word, or is this actually some meaning to it? I promise you, as always, stick with it. Over the next 15 minutes, we're going to have define what that means, but even more importantly, you will have actionable takeaways, because as you know, I believe deeply, if you don't do something with it today, it ain't going to happen tomorrow. So stick with us for the next 15 minutes. And Mickey, thank you very much for joining me in the conversation today. Before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So the quick story about me is what I do is I work for an organization called Learn It, and my job is to help other people get better at their jobs. And so I am essentially a corporate trainer, would be the easiest way to describe that. But I go into a lot of different organizations and help people build up their skills to get better at their jobs across all sorts of different industries. And so the topic of self-efficacy comes from both the last 20 some years of working and learning, and also some research that I've done.
Okay. Sounds like a great way to get the conversation going. And obviously, you have credibility in the field itself. So I always say, let's start off with a problem statement, right? Why is this important? What's a burning platform? So tell me your client story. Tell me your story. Tell me why this is something of importance and we should pay attention to it.
Absolutely. So the problem is, so I should define self-efficacy for everybody to know kind of exactly what we're talking about, because it does sound like a fancy consultative term, as you said. Self-efficacy, what people oftentimes think of is confidence. Oh, just be more confident at work. Be more confident. Oh, you look so confident when you do that. And really what it is, confidence is an external or an outside marker. If we look at somebody and say, oh, Walter, you're so confident as a podcast host, right? But the self-efficacy piece is the internal piece. What it means is, do I believe that I have the ability to get the job or the task or the thing done? And when we think about that, it's like, oh yeah, that is the internal game, right? That's what I tell people all the time. And that's what's so important. The problem is, in many people's jobs, their day to day, whether they are a people leader or an individual contributor, is that we rely on other people as the source of truth and knowledge as to whether or not we can do something. People give us job titles, they give us responsibilities, they delegate tasks to us, they tell us, oh, you're so good at this, so here's more of that, whatever that is. And what we don't do is we don't spend nearly the amount of time actually looking internally and saying, like, do I believe that I can do this? Do I believe I can change? Do I believe I can make this happen? Because self-efficacy is a much greater source of not only inspiration and motivation, but it's a much greater source of actual energy for us to do the thing. Whether the thing is something at work, or it's something for a health journey that we're on, or it's a fixing a project, fixing something around the house, whatever that might be. So where I see this a lot with our clients is people are coming to us, and they say, oh, well, we want our leaders to feel more confident and more capable in what they're doing. And I'm like, well, those are two different things, right? Capability is about competence and our ability to follow rules and expectations and produce the outcomes or the widgets or whatever it is that we need to do. But the confidence piece really is our willingness to work with people to kind of get in on the inside. And there's kind of 4 different components of self-efficacy, if you want me to get into that.
Sure. I mean, it sounds like it is. Is this a widespread program, so a problem, or is this just an isolated problem? Just to make sure people understand the grand scale of this.
Absolutely widespread. I mean, this is a human condition piece. It starts all the way when we are wee little tiny ones of, do I believe that I can ride the bicycle, right? Like, I'm learning how to swim. I have 2 little kids. And so I see this every day of, like, do I actually think I can? For any of us that watch the show that has been around for several decades now of Thomas the Train, right? Like the little engine who could, these sort of stories. Do I believe that I can actually do the thing? And the reality of this, Walter, is that every single day we're having conversations in our head with ourselves of, do I think that I can get this done? Do I think I have the skills? Do I have the energy? So this isn't just a work thing. This isn't just a certain geographic areas. This isn't just a certain type of person. This is a human condition.
So imposter syndrome is a label. So is there a difference between what you are discussing and what imposter syndrome is?
Yeah, imposter syndrome can be related to this because imposter syndrome really is this prevailing belief that I'm not good enough or I'm going to be found out as a fraud, right? And it's another one of the kind of psychological layers of kind of how we construct who we think we are. And the imposter syndrome really comes from a place of not believing that I deserve to be in the people or the places or the positions that I am. The self-efficacy piece really is task-based or situation-based. Like, do I think that I can do the things that are on my to-do list, as opposed to what do I think of myself in relationship to other people? So they're related to one.
Okay, very good. I thought so. I just wanted to make sure it's clear because
Yeah.
I'm sure that people are thinking about that term, right? All right, so go into we give a step as a problem. Obviously, it's significant. It's behavior based, which we all know is one of the most difficult things to change in people because people are always highly resistant to that because they're not willing to put the work in. Good for a good afternoon, but not for a sustained period of time. So, what do you do with clients? What are those four elements you were talking about?
Yes, so the four different elements are essentially kind of the ways in which we kind of change the radio station that's happening in our head, so to speak. So the first one is what's called mastery or kind of your own experiences. So thinking about what sort of experiences are you having? What does it feel like to be doing the things that you're doing? All of this sort of stuff as it sits in our own space. The second part of this is watching other people, or what's called vicarious learning, right? Any of us that have older siblings, we did a lot of this when we were kids, right? Watching the older sibling to figure out what to do, what should I do, what should I not do. We do this in the workplace all the time too by looking at colleagues and coworkers. How are they having success? How are they having challenges? The third piece to this is feedback from other people. So this could be feedback from my spouse. This could be feedback from my family, my supervisor, coworkers. What are other people telling me about how I'm actually doing something? And then the fourth one is both the physiological and the psychological state. So how does my body feel and how am I feeling mentally about the thing? And so when we look at those four things, and essentially if we kind of like toss them in a blender together and we mix them all up, that's what kind of gets us in the place of do I believe that I can do the thing? Do I believe that I can actually get this done successfully? And so what I do when I get together with folks and I talk about this is that it's not just about go out there and get more reps, go out there and just do it more. We have to actually have other people that we can watch and we can learn from, which is why things like podcasts and YouTube videos and education, all of this stuff is so important. We have to ask other people for like, what did you think of how I did with that? Both soliciting some of that feedback as well as just listening to the feedback that's coming to us. And we also have to check in within our own bodies of like, okay, was that nervousness that I was feeling or was that excitement that what I was feeling? Is this stress that I'm feeling right now? Is this negative stress or is this positive stress, right? So we kind of have to take a look at all of those things. And that's what allows us to kind of create these new versions or this new, kind of putting on a new radio station, so to speak, of how do I actually think of my ability to get something done.
Okay. Sounds really, really interesting. And I can certainly buy into it, but I don't want to be like an acupuncturist. It makes me feel good while I'm in the room, but as soon as I walk away, I'm like, oh my God, what now? Give me an example of a client that you have worked with from beginning, middle, and end, and what that was like and what the outcome was over a sustained period of time.
Yeah. So I actually did some executive coaching with somebody not too long ago, and one of the issues that he was coming to me with was, as he presented it, I want to be more confident in front of my colleagues. Right? He was in kind of a rising middle manager to senior level sort of role, and he said, I just want to be more confident, so I want to work with you on confidence. And as we broke things down, what I realized was it really was about his own internal narratives, right? Of what he was telling himself while he was, doing his leadership work, while he was supervising other teams, like all of this. And really it was a combination of negative self-talk as well as kind of a pretty negative view of, well, that wasn't good enough and I always need to be better. And people, that one person out of 20 people responded really poorly. And so what he and I did was we kind of broke things down across those four different pieces of like, okay, well, what did you do and what actually went well and what didn't go well, right? Like real concrete actions. What sort of things are you seeing other people do? So again, that's that vicarious learning, kind of watching other folks. So you said, okay, this is what some of my colleagues do in similar positions. This is how they approach those sort of things. Then I asked him to create a structure of feedback, right? So if this is about being more confident in front of your peers and being more confident in front of those that you supervise, what I did was I said, I want you to identify 2 or 3 people that you can get some regular feedback from, devise some questions that you can ask them, and we're going to dig into that feedback. And so we got that feedback and we went, okay, what that did was it rewrote the narrative for him. And then we also did kind of like a checking in, like, what does it feel like psychologically for you? And what do you feel like physically when you're doing some of these things? And what he realized was he was kind of mislabeling nervousness, or like mislabeling things as nervousness and worry and kind of a lack of capacity, to actually what it is my body's really activated and excited and I want to do my best, right? And so that process at the end of that coaching engagement, which was actually a pretty short coaching engagement, but at the process for him was this like huge light bulb moment. And I talked with him about the radio station that kind of plays in our head. And he said, yeah, now I'm just approaching this entirely differently because I'm not waiting for other people to label me as, oh, you're this really confident supervisor and you show up really well and all of this sort of stuff. He goes, that matters so much less to me. What matters more to me is how do I feel like I'm showing up? And what that does, or what that did for him, continues to do for him, is that he said, I'm just showing up in a much more kind of whole version of myself. And that to me, I think that authenticity and that realness, that's what everybody wants from everybody else.
Yeah, it's incredibly powerful to ask somebody else what they think of you, right? It is that the critical feedback loop. And most people shy away from that because all they really know and understand is the real me, right? I, my, me. But what really is important is how you are perceived, because on the end of the day, you have to manage how you are perceived, not what you think your reality is. And once people understand the gap, I tend to say, listen, do a 10 to 15 people survey, 360 family members, friends, close colleagues, superiors, whatever. And then out of that, lay it next to each other and look some of the attributes of strengths and blind spots and things you should do more of. And you see 2, 3, 4 times, then that becomes a super strength or something that could potentially be a career blocker. And not to be reactive to anything one person says, right? Because it's like chasing a tail that never works out very well. Very well. All right. So, what is the outcome for an organization? What's an outcome for a person that if they've gone through this, how long does it take for a typical person to change habits and behaviors that they can actually say, hey, this is actually worthy to undertake, and this is going to give me an outcome I seek?
Yeah, good question. I think everybody's light bulb moment comes at a different time, right? For some people, it's, kind of 1 or 2 times going through this process of kind of checking in and doing these 4 different stages or these 4 different processes. And it's, oh my gosh, like now I recognize how different this is and how I need to approach this differently. For other folks, it takes a while, right? Because you're essentially rewiring the way that your brain operates and the way that you're talking to yourself. But I think it's to me, like anything else, it's a practice of consistency. The behavior that I always recommend to people. So you talked about kind of actively engaging in feedback. Absolutely. The behavior that I always recommend to people is like, if you really want to get started in digging into changing your self-efficacy and your belief and your ability to get something done, is to create a reflection practice that takes 5 minutes at the end of every single workday. What I do is I actually set up an auto email that comes to myself that just asks me questions about those 4 different pieces, and I just respond with like one sentence sort of pieces of kind of like, what did I feel in my body today? What sort of feedback did I get from other people? Where did I watch somebody else do this well or not do this well? And what was the actual experience like for me? And I do this quick little 5-minute exercise for myself every single day. So I would encourage your listeners to do the same.
Yeah, I'm a 100% believer in daily management and daily tracking. All the tools that I have out there through the Dutch Mentor always have a tracking tool and accountability. Red, yellow, and green doesn't even have to go much deeper than that, but just telling your brain, that little voice, the truth center, so to speak, that where am I? What do I need to work on? And if you have more than 1 or 2 yellows or reds in a row, that requires some deeper thought, some countermeasures in order to get back on the track. Because you and I both know that changing a behavior could take 69 to 120 days. And most people drop off after about 4 or 5 days. Right?
Yeah.
Just think about the gym memberships, think about eating habits, think about exercise habits. It's exceptionally difficult to do. Mickey, thank you very much for really laying this out. It was well articulated. So kudos on your part. Tell us where we can find you.
Yeah. So the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. If you just search for Mickey Fitch-Collins on there, that's the best place to find me. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about what I do in terms of my work at Learn It, you can just go to learnit, learnit.com/Mickey, and you can take some free workshops there and also check out the podcast that I host there.
Excellent, very good. And I encourage all of the people who are listening today, it is really important that not just listen to this, but to take meaningful action. We have a couple of very simple examples. To go back to the 4 elements, listen to it again, or we'll be listening in the show notes. Just go to a simple exercise and raise self-awareness around the things that you feel, see, do. And of course, you have to remember, you will become the persons that you work with closest, which is not always the right way to go forward. So you might need to seek out some good mentorship, either unpaid in your workplace, or seek out and make a small investment in yourself to have a check-in with a person like Mickey or myself to help you get started with this. You owe it to yourself, so to speak. All right, final thoughts. Give us something that is impressionable, something that is deep, something that's meaningful.
Yeah, your body keeps the score, okay? And so pay attention to what is happening in your body, because oftentimes our mind will try to outconvince ourselves of what's actually happening in our body.
Yeah, I think that is so very powerful, right? And men more than women, I will say pride and ego often gets in the way. It is okay to feel, and I'm looking in the mirror right now. As a hardened paramedic and flight medic, we are taught over time to be numb on the inside because we see so much stuff. But it is important to feel and get your way through that. Mickey, thank you very much for being here today. I really, really appreciate you. And to the audience, again, go to thedutchmentor.com. There's lots of tools available to you too to get started in the right direction. Of course, you can book a 30-minute free call with me to talk about whatever it is that you want to do in life. It's not about me. It's always about you. Have a great day. And we'll talk again real soon. Mickey, have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.